This is just one new angle on things and shouldn't be mistaken as being the answer to life or what life is all about. Today we're going to look at this concept of the weaknesses that you have are not because you are bad, but because you are folded. You fold because you're designed to fold, and you're living your design. And that absolutely gives you success, no matter how you may fail. If you understand what I will cover in this video, you should feel better about your place in the world. You are designed all folded up, something like a bellows or an accordion. Even your DNA is coiled and twisted and folded. And that's the building blocks of your entire life, man. So with all those foldings, you will probably find that you mismatch your world in some way. Not everything misses the mark, but a lot does. And that accounts for the varying levels of comfort that each person has. There's a place that for any given application is just exactly right. And missing that place is called missing the mark or missing the bullseye. Missing the mark is uncomfortable. When you see even the videos of cells dividing, cells being folded all around into all kinds of shapes, structures, and creations, you can understand that it's not just you, but that creation around you is also folded in a similar way. And that could be why it's called the manifold creation or the manifold universe. But there's a way to reconcile these places that, because of being folded, may be off track or missing the mark. And this could directly relate to your surfing, skating, board sports, or just to your life. Lots of mystical traditions describe it from different angles and using different names and terms in different languages, but it's the same thing. So mystically, folded things are going in more than one direction. When something's folded, by its design, it's going in more than one direction. And because form follows function and function follows form, you're going to get whatever results you get, just doing your best with what you got to work with, right? With all the folds and all the designs that you are uniquely blessed with. So you are also designed with whatever lefts, rights, ups, and downs that you may have. This means that you may tend to mismatch the world as to some applications, whether it be in surfing, skating, board sports, but especially in life. Folded things, of course it depends on the application, right? But commonly they're looked at as being perhaps weak, weak as to some applications just because they're folded. And being folded in that way, like I said, it means they will sometimes be off. But it doesn't mean they're bad. It means they're weak as to that application, as to that particular consideration. But the thing is, that's by design. It's just the way they're designed. Even so, being designed like that, or however each person or each part of creation is, we can still choose, Man, I'm done hamming it up. Let's keep going. So when something's slightly off, it can interact with something else that's slightly off, and this produces an endless variety of new creations. And these are creations that had never occurred before from the beginning of time. That's the amazing thing. Life is ever new. I mean, you are even different today than you were yesterday. You have new food in you. Your hair might be longer. You know, it's a different time of day. The planets are in a different position. Everything always changes. And so all these interactions, even though it may seem to you like that it's just the same boring old BS all the time, it's new. It's never happened before. And so this new creation is witnessed from the changeless, pristine place that can be found between the opposites. So flaws are valuable because they interact with each other to bring forth new creations, new learnings, and new combinations of life. And there's locationality and directionality to all of this. And there can be to its reconciliation or to its remedy. Those weaknesses that you may have are not because you're a bad person necessarily, but because you are designed as you are. You came coiled up from the place that you came coiled up from. And now you're in this setting on this stage that's also coiled up. And you're just trying to keep your balance, just trying to get through the day. But the thing is, it's no big deal to be folded and coiled up and miss the mark in those ways. That's what I'm trying to say. Missing the mark is just part of living. So you're designed as you are, and you're living the design. So even though something is folded and missing the mark, let's take a look at different ways that can be made straight, that can be straightened, okay? First of all, let's consider that a bullseye is not folded and does not miss the mark. See, if you had a target, right, with all the rings around it, and there was the bullseye, and your goal was to just hit the bullseye. Once you hit the bullseye, you hit the mark, so you didn't miss the mark. But the bullseye is not folded. It's just one place. If you can arrive at the bullseye, be fully and completely arrived in that place, you can know it is the right place, and it represents the end of all striving and efforting to get there. Why? Because you are there already. And the bullseye is a place of conclusion. It represents the end of all missings and all distractions, and it's the end of all exhaustive efforting to get there. So in this way, the bullseye is a place of rest. It's like the peaceful center that's found in the eye of a hurricane, a place of refuge in the middle of life's storms. It's possible to hang out and live as the bullseye. You might have heard an ancient scripture verse that talks about lowering the mountains and raising the valleys. And that represents to me the reconciling of the mismatchings, of the missings of the mark. And I view it as a real thing. So the mountains will be lowered and the valleys will be raised. In mystical Christianity, there is that teaching that Christ will lower the mountains and raise the valleys. Basically, any kind of imbalance, any kind of missing of the mark can be made right, can be reconciled, to return creation to its pristine, unfolded state. To straighten the foldings and to remove the missings of the mark as far from us as the east is from the west. If I was facing north, this would be my east arm. This would be my west arm. This would be my east shoulder. This would be my west shoulder. This is the sternum in the center of the chest. These would be my east ribs. These would be my west ribs. And the place that separates the east and the west from the west, is the place where you are. It's the straight and narrow place that you can abide in between opposites, between the changing presentations of the world as they present before you in ever new ways. And each presentation is an invitation to either hold to the one and abide in me, not me here, but in you know, point to yourself and say me, to abide in me, or to go outward into the world, missing the mark, toiling and spinning, taking thought for the morrow, and just stirring things up in creation. So you can choose to abide in the pristine place that was there before the opposites arose and separated out into creation. And that's done by this technique of surfing. I wrote a different article about it, how to surf or skateboard without a board. It relates to basically as the world presents itself to us, there's something called aversion and affinity. Aversion means you tend to lean away from things you don't like. And affinity means liking, so you tend to lean toward things that you do like. And so as the world presents itself, and just who knows what infinite combinations there are in the presentation which is always unfolding before you. If you can learn to set up the human frame, to set up the equivalent of an old-fashioned scale, and choose 2 points, gather 2 points, one on the left, one on the right, then as the world presents itself, you'll actually feel yourself leaning one way or leaning the other. And so you'll know exactly when you're abiding as balanced and when you've departed. So it's something related to that. But that's explained in a lot of detail in my other video called How to Surf or Skateboard Without a Board. So basically, the removing of the missings of the mark as far from us as the east is from the west. To a state that does not miss the mark. To the pristine place that existed before directionality arose, before left and right, up and down, early and late separated from each other. So there's this concept that when something isn't folded, when it's just in one piece and all integrated, right, then we tend to look at that as being something strong. But the truth is it's not strong in all applications. It's only good for the things it's good for. But for this example, let's just consider a tent pole, that it's straight and strong. And it can support the weight of the tent with no problem, and it doesn't blow out into 10,000 changes. As contrasted to if you had something that was kind of zigzag shaped like that, and then you put the weight of the tent or the weight of the universe upon it, it would just squash right down, you know. It's just a matter of design. So you could say that the tent pole can support the tent, and there's also this talk of the yoke. You've probably heard that verse that says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So similarly, this scale that we establish by picking a point on one side and one on the other and abiding between those sampled points, it's the equivalent of the Christian yoke, or the Christian cross even, because check it out. The cross has a central axis, right, which represents not leaning to the right, not leaning to the left. And then there's also a place between too high and too low. And if you were to mark that place, it would be the horizontal arm of the cross. So you could say that's the mystical cross, and you could say that learning to abide in the place that doesn't miss the mark, I view that as what it means to take up your cross and follow me. Me is the indwelling place, which, it's where your treasure is. It's where your treasure is, there will your heart be also, basically. So it is possible to use the human frame to gather two or more points and set up the equivalent of a yoke or a scale. And you can practice in such a way to actually hold to the center and witness the foldings and changes of creation outwardly, while the center remains steady, peaceful, and secure. As you rest in the peaceful center, it may seem as if you're resting between, like, the walls of appearances or the walls of rest. And that place where you rest, where you are, it isn't so much a thing as it is a place between things, between opposites. And there's a Buddhist story that may somehow match this. It's the one where the Buddhist teacher, he'd always lift his, I'm going to use this finger for this example, okay, the central finger, even though it was probably done this way. Or who knows, man, I wasn't there. But the story of a Buddhist teacher, that he had his finger cut off. So this finger was gone. And before that, he'd always lift his hand in whatever gesture he did. Let's just say, for this example, it was this gesture, right? But he had his finger cut off, and then in the class, he's still lifting his hand just like before. I can't do it because my hand shakes, but it would be, you get the idea, like that, basically. And the thing is, it was the absence of that expected finger that allowed his student to realize that something changeless can be known by what is missing. He lifted his hand, but the finger was gone. So the contrast of what was there and then what was missing brought enlightenment to the student that saw it. And for this example, I'm saying that being able to view the surrounding fingers that were still there was important for this realization. And that's why when we set up the equivalent of a scale to surf the pristine place, we actually choose 2 points in creation and gather those 2 or more points while resting and knowing what is in the midst of them, unchanged between them in the changeless place between opposites. So from the Buddha story above, we abide in the place of the missing finger. So you can imagine there's a finger here, a finger here. There used to be a finger here, but now it's gone, right? So we abide in the place of the missing finger, and hopefully it's not the middle finger. But the remaining fingers form essentially a scale or a reference to surf the place between them. When pressure arrives, you will tend to give in to to one direction or another. And it's just the way you're designed. For example, if the pressure of hunger arrives, right? You're not expected to just sit around and not choose food, to not go outward and get food someplace. So you'll give in either toward the pizza on one side of the street or the Chinese food on the other, right? But for that particular hunger, there's only enough room for one of those choices at that moment in time. So what happens is something is chosen, Chinese food. And by the choosing, something else is left unchosen. So what this means is something is done and something else is left undone. So you attend to what you choose. But by the attending, you don't choose the other thing. If you can surf this place, though, it attends to everything. That's kind of hard to follow, but anyway, but that's just the design for you. And you can choose the folds. Remember I said you fold it up in different ways. You can actually choose the folds to sail along through life. It's kind of like the wind to a sailboat. When the wind arrives, the sailboat can turn its sail any old way it wants to and navigate all over the place and get to new places and get things done. So the folds are actually your sail, and you can actually navigate life with your choices in this world of opposites. You can extend one side and withdraw another, and that determines where you end up. You want to go to the restaurant, so you hoist one side and you bring in the other. And when you think about it, that's how you walk and move and do board sports. You extend one side and you withdraw another. It's how you negotiate life and also how you surf and skateboard. And you can experience all these changes as you rest in the timeless place in the midst of the changing world. But basically, where you extend your sail, it's related to where you go in life and where you'll be. So for this reason, even though it's true that you're designed as you are with whatever folds you have and like this, it may still be advisable to try for the good things, for the peaceful, beautiful, restful, happy things in life. I mean, you can pretty much get what you want, based on this principle. But that's what you get. That's what you travel to, and it's how to seek and find a beautiful life. But even if you're laying there like this old accordion that got all twisted around and stuff, all folded every which way, kind of half smiling, half crying, wanting to go to one place, but kind of undecided, and also wanting to go to another place, wanting one item on the menu, but craving another. You're not stuck. You can surf the middle way. I find that interesting that the Buddha talked about the middle way. So it's possible to set up the equivalent of a scale and to surf the place between opposites. There is a way to surf the changeless place between opposites and transcend the missings of the mark. Then surfing that place just to rest there no matter how the world would move and change. So these different presentations will arrive, but you can surf the arisal of them and still abide in the center. And when you do that, you're in the place that does not miss the mark, and life around you will tend to be organized in relation to this changeless center. I wrote about that in the article on how to surf or skateboard without a board. But I also wrote about it in this really cool article on how to solve problems before they happen. And I wrote about how doing this can really change outcomes. That one is a really good one to read or watch the video on. So all you do is you just set up the scale, you find this place, and you abide there, no matter how the world would draw you outwardly. So instead of going outward, chasing the world of creation, taking thought for the morrow and being anxiously toiling and spinning, you just hold to the one. This is in all the mystic traditions that I know of, this is the abiding place of your true self, exactly where you are and where you have always been. But the thing is, because that's not always realized, we have this way of training and practicing, which is just an additional way to surf that place in all varied conditions, and to experience it as steady and not changing. And that's all we do. We surf the place between opposites, and with dwelling there, we will realize that it transcends even the points that we hold. And with this, we realize that effort is not necessary to simply be as we are. It may be hard to believe, but even as you as you listen to this video, you are fully arrived exactly exactly in the right place at the right time, and in that you do have perfection, because you are inescapably you, and your unique foldings, the way you are designed, nowhere else in creation can you find that. So you're doing a great job right now of being exactly in that place. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to swig down some water. Watch. This is what I drink from. It's a Pyrex thing. Because my words are too hot to handle. No, enough being dumb here. Okay. The fact is that no one can do a better job of being you as you can. So you are living the design perfectly for this moment, and you are right on track. And where, in that place where you are, it's possible to learn to establish the scale and start exactly where you are and surf the presentations of life, how in the way that they present themselves to you, and practice being balanced at all times and in all places. And by not mismatching the world, not overreacting, not underreacting, not colliding with the world, and not being disconnected when it would be ideal to be connected, what you'll find is that around you is no longer stirred up as it might have been in the past. I mean, if you antagonize the appearances of the world around you, that just generates more unfinished business. If someone walks up and you just punch them, man, that's going to cause all kinds of trouble and unfinished business in the world. But if you make a different choice and you choose, long-suffering, kindness, then, man, you don't have to deal with that. But you need to know where to start, and that's the value of this type of practice. And from your outpost in creation, you can choose to surf the arisings and appearances that life may present. So some people say that you can never escape yourself. Indeed, if you climbed to the highest mountain, trying to outclimb yourself, or if you swam to the deepest ocean, maybe if I just swim deeper, I can outswim myself. No, you won't outswim yourself. You'll still be wherever you are. So you can never escape your existence as you. And what this means is, when you think about it, despite everything you could ever do, and no matter how creation may change, you can still never escape being yourself. Then that means you can rest in that place because you're already there. So let's consider then, what effort would be necessary for you to obtain that place if you can't even escape being there? Would you need to sit in meditation, practice fasting, chanting, praying, doing yoga, or what? So the news flash is that you are already there now, and that you are it. So this idea, we talked about this a little bit, about missing the mark. I used the example of going to the restaurant and Chinese food today. But that means you couldn't have the pizza. Similarly, if you wanted to visit somebody in a hospital, right? That would mean, so you want to visit somebody in a hospital. That's a stupid way to look. Sorry. No, but that means that you can't visit the person on the other side of town in the other hospital at the same time. So what does that do? You feel great because you visited the one, you were fully there. I mean, you did good, you did way good. But what about just skipping out on the other guy, the person on the other side of town that you wanted to visit? I mean, that person could feel let down, and you might even feel, like flawed, or like you did something wrong by not going there. The thing is, though, the answer is to be fully and completely arrived wherever you go. So if you go to visit your friend there, just surf the surf the changeless place and fully attend the arisings of that place. And then the idea is that by being fully there, that would that would bless the world and help put things right in the world, even on the place that had been left out. That's the concept. So so you do feel fulfillment when you visit a friend and that kind of thing. So the truth is, in practicing in this way, you may feel that you neither come nor go, that you're always steadily in this place, the place exactly where you've always been. Wherever the place and moment of fulfillment is, that is the place of the bullseye. And you can bask there for a while. So basking there and resting and just fully loving it. It may take a while for the next goal to rise and form, but you can surf and abide in this place during the arisings of life around you. So the next goal begins arising and forming. You hold to this place as it arises and forms, and you don't depart from it. You can rest right here. So you can surf and abide in that place during the arisings of life around you. But whatever you choose in life, and wherever you go, it can be the place and the point of satisfaction. Because you are there, you just need to appreciate being where you are. And when you practice in this way, what happens is you'll end up not bailing. And what does it mean when you don't bail, but you endure? It's long suffering. enduring, all the characteristics, all the description of what love is. You know, you read about love in scriptures. Love is just when you fully attend. But this gives you a way to train in not bailing and abiding with. And that's the idea of not bailing. I've not been an expert on that in life, I can tell you that. That's the lesson that I definitely had to learn. And anyway, so creation outward from you, it corresponds to the example of the target, to the rest of the target outward from the bullseye. Your changeless, pristine place in the center is the beginning and end of all seeking. Directions and angles are changeable and weak, and they can collapse and fail. But when people collapse or fail in some area, gee, I just folded my ear and I was supposed to keep it open so I could hear better. I just failed. There, that's better. I succeeded. You know what I mean? Changes happen all the time. We're designed like this, I'm telling you. But when people collapse or fail in some area, it doesn't mean they're bad. They're just folded up in such a way as to get a different result for that application. A result that could have been viewed as being weak as to that application. But they're living their design. But the thing is, they can rearrange themselves, reorient themselves in advance of that arriving application, and so be spot on. And you can surf it. You can stay in that sweet spot. And that's how and why people can stay on a surfboard or a skateboard for an extended time. It's the same example that it's possible to do this. Literally, they are surfing their place in creation in all types of conditions. So this is proof, this is evidence that it's possible to do this. And this is the thing, man. The more you practice in this way, that you can be steady no matter how the world may move and change, no matter what the combinations are. Pretty soon there's not much in the world that can throw you or make you lose balance. And the thing is, because you can stay there with less and less effort, because you know how to be in this world, you can actually relax more and more. And that's why the magnificent surfers are the ones that are just relaxed as can be, man. They're just stuck to the board like a piece of, I don't know, gum or something, man. They're just so relaxed. But that's where training comes in. This is what I'm trying to tell you, though. It's possible to train in this way even without a skateboard, even without a surfboard. If you can... Okay, so here's what happens. The surfers or the skateboarders, they have 2 points. They have 1 foot on one part of the board, 1 on the other part of the board, and between those 2 feet, they sink their center of gravity. And then they just abide in balance as the world moves and changes. But the thing is, man, if you read that article I wrote about how to surf or skateboard without a board, you'll realize that you can just choose 2 points on the human body, even without a board. And you can practice abiding in the midst of them. And that this may, and I believe it does, relate to this idea that where 2 or more are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. So anyway, that's where training comes in. Things are as they're supposed to be. folded things, even though you might think they're not as strong as something else, not as strong as, I mean, if you view a tent pole as being strong, for example, where everything's all in alignment in one piece. There's an exception to that, though, that I would ask you to consider, and that is if you actually wanted an accordion, you know, the musical instrument, if you actually wanted that instead of the tent pole wouldn't work. One moment, there it is as a tent pole, it's spot on, it's exactly right, it doesn't miss the mark. But then, if you want an accordion, the tent pole's not going to play music. It doesn't expand. It wouldn't expand in and out, and it wouldn't produce music. So it would miss the mark for that particular target or application. What I'm trying to say is that if you've had a failure in some area, you didn't miss the mark as to all things. You only did for that little thing. That means you can find out what you're good at, find out how you're designed, and that may help you excel. So the accordion alone would hit the bullseye in that example, would be the bullseye. It's like you go shopping for the accordion. You go into the music shop, and you look down and you see, there it is. Look at that accordion, how it's folded just exactly right, exactly what I've been looking for. That's it, that's spot on, that hits the bullseye, it's perfect, you know. But that thing's not a tent pole either. So in that same way, that's how you are already exactly perfect for yourself. And you are already the bullseye. Even if externally something hasn't worked out, it only fails in its limited way, but not in all ways. In many other ways it succeeds. There will always be a way in which it succeeds. In the middle of all that, you are successfully still here. I like to think that the Creator wants you, wants me, wants all of us to be where we are, uniquely being in creation as only we can. That life is almost like a stage, right? And if the Creator wanted to create an interesting creation, the Creator wouldn't pick all these exact perfect characters that every one of them is exactly the same and pristine and perfect and alike. No, man. The Creator would populate that stage with a whole range of characters. There'd be a villain character, a hero character, an ugly sucker, a good one. You'd have the full range. And with that range, that's where they interact, and that's where you get a good show. And in that mixture of creation is where I like to think that it's where the Creator witnesses all of that, and new learnings happen, because that mixture of creation had never, ever happened before from the beginning of time. So I think, and I also think that's why there might be like different political views, even two different political parties. Man, it's just putting on a show. It's just part of the mixture, you know. You get all mixed up in that, and whether you realize you're an actor on the stage or you take it too seriously and you get all bruised up or what, I think when life's over, each individual outpost of creation is going to go back and be appreciated as a good actor would be on a stage, with the Creator saying, "Good job, you put on a great show, man. That was fantastic." So it's like appreciating a movie or an actor that puts on a good show. And that may be one reason that you never have to feel less than again. Maybe the Creator needs someone to stir things up in the world, and you're playing a role that nobody else can play. Even if you just want to be more peaceful and more comfortable and more relaxed and make better choices, there's nothing wrong with that either. And a lot of times you might look at somebody and think, look at that person, man. They look great. They got everything together. You know, they got it all. But in Tai Chi, we learn that even if a person's outer appearance seems beautiful, perfect, and everything, that there are still hidden weaknesses, that inside they are still folded and weak. Doesn't that make sense? They started with DNA too, and they formed in the way they formed and everything. So they're going to have strong places, but weak places too. And we learn that adding the right kind of pressure to them will bring out the weakness that otherwise might not show. That when pressure is applied, those weak points will tend to blow. And that means that you are not second-class citizen anymore. That means that all these people that you might have once envied, that are just strutting around and prancing like they have it all together, those people are also flawed, and they're also folded up too. So we can be easy on them and have compassion for them anyway. Also, because you can just bet that they've had their times of crying themselves to sleep, or feeling less than, or maybe even wishing they didn't have such a beautiful appearance, that they're always getting chased and whistled at, and they just want to be able to relate as a normal, I shouldn't say normal, but as a common person, So even their beauty might be a curse, You just never know. So many of the celebrities and other people that you think they have it made, and then you find out they're gone, and that's it, So people are folded up as they are, right? They're not folded up differently than they are. They're just simply as they are. And they're designed to eventually blow out when pressure is applied. That's just the way life is. But you can find the place that existed before directionality separated out into opposites. And you can live from that place and abide there. And as you do, I believe that it'll help set things right in creation and in the world. And if you're not sure how that would work, watch the video on how to solve problems before they happen. That will help you. And you can live from there, and living from there, you are free. Balance is freedom. If you are balanced, that means you're spot on. That means from this place of balance, just like that, you can go to the front, the back, left, right. You can respond to life, right? But if you're off balance, you're not free, because you're one step removed from freedom. What that means is you first have to regain your balance, and then from that point of balance, then you can adapt and move. So what I'm saying is, the closer to balance that you can live, the closer to freedom you are. You can sample the world in limitless ways, and no matter what its external appearance, still be able to find and abide in the space between opposites. In that place, you are forever untouched and beyond folding. And that is where you always live. That which is beyond folding is preeminent over anything that is capable of being folded, anything that is capable of missing the mark. And I ask you to please like my videos right there. And thank you for subscribing. And so be sure to check out either the video on how to surf or skateboard without a board, which explains how to set up the scale and be balanced, or the video on how to solve problems before they happen. But that one's kind of based upon already knowing how to set up the scale. So thanks again.